Hi, Sam. How are you?
Hi, Candy.
Thank
Good.
you for being here with us today. You are the founder of Alovea, and you have actually founded multiple companies, right? Alovea being your latest company.
Yes.
And in my opinion, you are the leading entrepreneur in the supplement industry right now. You have the,
Thank you.
what I call them, the Gucci of the supplements out
I
there
like
on
that.
the market. You also founded the nonprofit organization Manna Relief,
Yes.
which helps immune challenged children all across the globe. It's amazing work that you do.
Yeah.
And you provide them with the supplement that is I would say the flagship supplement of Alovea, which is called Immune,
Yes.
which is Acemannan.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about how you stumbled upon Acemannan.
That's a story.
I love the story.
Okay, so 1993, and that I am an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
We had just sold a business, and my wife and I were at a place in our lives where we wanted our life to account for more than just making money. And so we were just really looking for an opportunity where we could serve. And so I think it's providence that I've discovered Acemannan in the way that I did. So one day my dad called me and he said, I have a cousin who's a nurse who's working with a group of doctors. They've made this incredible discovery. I don't know anything about it, but they're really trying to find a way to market this discovery. And she called and said, would you go over there and spend a day with them? Because that's my background, is bringing technologies into the marketplace.
Yeah.
So I did, and it was a pharmaceutical company called Carrington Laboratories. And fascinating story. They had discovered the biologically active molecule in the aloe vera plant that was responsible for its rich history of health and healing. And it was a labile molecule. It's called Acemannan. Labile means that it naturally denatures within about 24 hours from the time that you pick the plant. So everybody knew about aloe vera, everybody knew the history, but none of the commercial products had the active ingredient that was responsible for that rich reputation. So these guys discovered the molecule. They found a way to stabilize it for the very first time. It was named Acemannan, and their goal as a pharmaceutical company was to bring it to market as a drug. Its main function is it optimizes immunology. I mean, it is just a miraculous molecule. As I learned when I sat down with these guys, there's nothing like it in nature, and there's nothing like it in medicine. And you start from the premise that the human body heals itself. In fact, the father of pharmacology was a man named Paracelsus. And he said in the 1600s, everything that man needs to achieve and sustain health is provided by God and nature. It's the job of science to go find it.
Yeah.
So these guys were on it, you know. So they made this incredible discovery, this molecule that has a mechanism of action, again, unlike anything. And so I'm sitting there talking to them about, well, how do you know this? Well, because we've invested $100 million already in defining its mechanism of action and how it works and how it activates the immune system and how it helps modulate immunology. One of the doctors, he said, here's my perspective, it's as important as the discovery of penicillin. He said, if modern medicine ever gets their mind around what this molecule can do to the human condition, it changes everything. Here's the problem they ran into and the reason they called me. Their goal was to bring it to market as a drug. So they filed investigative new drug application with the FDA. They had got it approved as a drug for veterinarian medicine, so it had already been approved for the treatment of cancer and different types of disease conditions in animals, simply because of its efficacy. It worked. It was safe and it worked. Well, for human drugs, it's a little different. You have to also prove what is its drug effect. How does it alter the physiology of a disease process? Well, Acemannan doesn't do that. It's not a drug. It doesn't alter physiology. It supports physiology. So the FDA reported back to them after looking at all their science, you don't have a drug. You have a nutrient, you know, and they're going, well, yeah, but we want to use it for health, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they were in that dilemma. And, they'd gone public, they'd raised hundreds of millions of dollars, and they had a real urgency to get their product into the marketplace. And they knew nothing about dietary supplementation. They knew nothing about how to distribute, how to educate the consumer. They had tried a little bit of retailing of Acemannan, in health food stores, but, it takes about 5 times more expense to stabilize and process aloe than it does just to squeeze a leaf into a bottle,
Right.
So they had no way of educating the consumer on the benefit of their particular aloe extract versus anyone else's. Anyway, so that was their dilemma. So I looked at all their science, and I went home to my wife, and, we were talking and praying about this, and I just said, I think this is the technology that we're looking for. I think we can do something with this technology that will serve, people better than anything we've ever been a part of. And here's what really was the trigger point for me, but the perspective of the most important discovery since penicillin, I just couldn't get that out of my head. So I'm looking at this molecular structure and what it does. And of course, from a marketing standpoint, I always want to know what's going to be our competition, what's going to be your competition. And I said, okay, so this is an amazing molecule. I understand how it works now. You showed me all that. Does it occur any place else in nature? And they said, well, actually it does. One other place, that's human breast milk. And I went, what?
Yeah.
And I said, explain that to me. And they said, when a woman becomes pregnant, she starts converting high levels of glucose into the sugar mannose, which is what is the string of sugars that are put together in Acemannan. It's that string of mannose, that causes the immune response. And they said, have you ever noticed or have you ever heard that a woman who has like an autoimmune disorder, when she becomes pregnant, it goes away? Because all of a sudden her immune system starts getting the support that it needs to optimize her body's ability to heal itself.
Yeah.
And but once she's delivered and the baby has gone past the breast milk stage, she reverts right back to the condition she had before. And I just thought, that is the most interesting factoid that I've ever heard about a product. And I thought, this is amazing.
Yeah.
The whole world needs to hear this story. So what I was supposed to do is come back with a recommendation for how they could get their product most effectively into the market. And my recommendation was to let me do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I can tell this story. I think I can develop a marketing system that will allow consumers to both be educated and to share the experience that they were having with this incredible discovery. So I convinced them to exclusively license that technology to me, because I couldn't build the brand unless I owned the technology. Yeah. And so they did. That's how desperate they were.
Wow.
So I started a company and we commercialized, the discovery of Acemannan. We ultimately took it all over the world. It was the first generation of that technology, but it worked. People's lives were transformed in ways that we could have never imagined.
So I've been using the Immune, which is the Acemannan, in my practice now for a couple months, and it's flying off my shelves. It's almost like people intuitively know this is the missing link to their health. Yeah. So tell me, because it's so immunomodulating, what sets it apart from other immune herbs, like echinacea, say?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that can activate your immune system. Toxins can activate your immune system. Right. But what's unique about Acemannan is it fits into the human physiology equation. So how does your immune system determine that something's gone wrong? It has a surveillance system, and the master regulator of the immune system is called a macrophage, big white blood cell. And the master regulator, this macrophage, wanders through the body, and it touches all the cells, and it says, are you me? And are you okay? Are you me and disease, something gone wrong? Are you not me and you need to be destroyed? Yeah. So how does it dictate that? It reads cell surface structures called glycoproteins. Glyco is the Greek word for sugar. So these sugar strands, It's how cells transfer their biological data. And when a cell becomes damaged, ill, or dead even, it expresses one sugar on the end of those structures. It's the sugar mannose. And mannose is the sugar that acemannan is made of. And so when the macrophage, which has these little receptor sites that are called mannose receptor sites, it's looking for mannose. That's how it detects damaged or diseased or dead cells. So when you put acemannan in the body and it's at a particular molecular weight, it actually binds to that receptor, and the macrophage just goes into action, makes more macrophages, makes more stem cells, alerts all the rest of the immune system, puts it on high alert. So it actually optimizes the immune response by modulating it appropriately, taking it up when it's supposed to, taking it down when it's supposed to. But it's the molecular structure of the molecule, the polysaccharide made of mannose, that causes that response. And as the guys at Carrington Labs told me, the researchers, there's nothing else like it in nature. So it has a very unique mechanism of action of why it works so effectively.
Now, does your body make its own mannose? Is this a deficiency that most people have?
Well, your body can make mannose. Actually, it's interesting. Your body is designed to get mannose through diet. So how do you know that? Well, because there's transporting mechanisms on your intestinal wall that are looking for nothing but mannose. That's all they do. They grab mannose, pump it into the bloodstream. Bloodstream takes it to the liver. That's where glycoprotein synthesis starts. So these sugars start being bound together. They're released into the bloodstream, and every cell captures that mannose, takes it in, and starts making glycoprotein. So you're supposed to get it through diet. But it's so critical in human physiology that you have a backup mechanism. And when there's a huge deficiency of mannose in your body, because you have to have it for health, your liver can start converting glucose or other sugars into mannose. But it takes a lot of energy to do that. So the design of life is get it through diet. That's why you have the pump sites looking for mannose.
I think it's very interesting too that aloe vera is known as the holy plant.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a little secret there for us to look at that plant and that molecule. What is that doing to our DNA?
Well, every culture since the beginning of recorded time has used aloe vera for that purpose. And you can look at the history of aloe vera in all these cultures, and there are words like the holy plant, because they learned a long time ago that there was something in the aloe vera plant that enhanced the body's ability to heal itself.
Yep.
They just didn't know what it was until the 1980s.
So the acemannan is in the aloe vera plant.
Yes.
And it's my understanding after 24 hours, it's denatured, so it's no longer working, right?
Right.
So tell us a little bit about, how the technology is with preserving that acemannan.
Well, okay, so in the plant, you have these strings of sugars called acemannan. And it is the molecular structure of the of the molecule that holds the water together into the gel. So if you've ever taken apart an aloe vera plant, you see that thick gel. Yeah. So these polysaccharides called acemannan hold that water into a gel. So this is the way nature works. When the leaf gets damaged, an enzyme comes in and clips the sugars. So it loses its structure. When it loses its structure, it loses the ability to hold the water in a gel. And so then the water evaporates, the leaf falls off, and a new leaf grows. So when they pick the leaf, it ignites the exact same mechanism of action, and the polysaccharide, gets denatured. So they developed a process for stabilizing the polysaccharide by deactivating the enzyme that actually clips it. And so once you deactivate the enzyme, it stays stable. And that became a processing patent that they filed and received. So the company, the pharmaceutical company, filed and received about 130 different patents. Some of them were on the processing, the extraction process, and some were on the uses. And so to get a use patent, you just have to show that it's effective in the use of this. And you can name any condition that humans suffer from, and if the immune system is functioning appropriately, that becomes part of your use patterns.
Okay.
It's useful in what? It's like Paracelsus. Everything man needs, not some things.
Right.
Everything man needs to achieve and sustain health is in nature. That's what Acemannan is. It's one of those everythings.
So tell us a little bit about your nonprofit that you founded, Manna Relief.
Well, okay, so we had this incredible discovery. We own the exclusive rights to it, of Acemannan. From a commercial standpoint, we were building a company. We were expanding it around the world. Very successful, but there felt like something was missing in the equation that we were looking for. You know, my wife and I, how do we impact the whole world? And we didn't know what that was. It just felt like something was missing. My wife and I adopted all of our children, so we were in the adoption process, and we were supporting orphanages. And I just happened to be with an orphanage group from Romania, and we were financially supporting them. And I just asked the head caregiver, "What's your biggest problem? What do you deal with that is insurmountable?" And she said, "It's actually the health of our children. They're sick all the time." And because of poor nutrition, poor sanitation, stress in their environment, these kids are highly susceptible to every kind of chronic and infectious disease. And when one child gets sick, they all get sick. And we lose 30 to 40 kids a year. We don't have access to good medicine, health care, and that's the biggest dilemma we face. She said, these are all immune deficiency related issues. And when she said that, I knew that was the purpose, of what we were all about. So I said, I think I have something that can make a difference. It's called Acemannan. I told her about it. I said, I can send it in a powdered form. All you have to do is put it in the food, and it will transform these kids' lives. And so she agreed to do that, of course. And the hardest thing was sending a 5-kilo bag of white powder, around the world, trying to get it through customs.
Yeah.
But so we got it to her. She used it for a year. We sent enough for all of her children. At the end of the year, we reconnected. She said, "You're not going to believe what's happened. Our kids are healthier than we have ever seen them. And for the first time in over a decade, not one child died."
Oh, it's just amazing.
I know. And then she said, not only do we want it again, but everybody we're networked with in the world of orphanages wants to know how can they get access to this magic white powder,
Yeah.
And so we thought, well, how do we formalize that? I mean, if you want to make money, you start a business. If you want to do good, you start a charity,
Yeah.
So we decided to start a charity, Manna Relief. And I'd never been in the charity business before. It was, the biggest challenge is fundraising. You've got to go out there and raise money for anything to happen.
Right.
I tell people it's full-time begging, part-time work.
Yeah.
when you get into the charity business. But, we built a donor base. We'd build it up, and we'd get up to nourishing 70, 80,000 children a day.
Wow.
And then, and it was easy to find distribution, because everybody needs it.
Yep.
And that word spread like wildfire. So we were getting calls from orphanages all over the world.
Yeah.
And sometimes it would be a church, for instance, that was supporting just one school, one orphanage, and they could just take a 5-kilo bag with them. But in some cases, it was organizations of orphanages and things like that. So, over the years, we developed a system for distributing Acemannan to those organizations, and it was just incredible. I mean, the things that we saw with kids, it's just, you take the worst case scenario you can possibly imagine, kids in the worst conditions of the world, and you just transform their lives.
Yeah.
And
There's nothing better than that.
I mean, it was the most fulfilling thing that I've ever done with my life.
Yep. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you from everyone for doing it, because it's just, like I said, that I'm so passionate about epigenetics and how we're helping these children to support that genome so it's passed on so the future generations don't struggle with things like, these generations have to.
Yeah.
So it's incredible. So Manna Relief now is supportive of Alovea, and you offer this buy one, nourish one program through them. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, as I said a few minutes ago, the biggest challenge with any not-for-profit is fundraising. I mean, it's the biggest limitation to fulfilling what you're trying to do with your organization. And it's just a very unsustainable way to try to impact the world. You know, again, you'll build a donor base and then it will go down. And you can't raise enough money to get to the number of children that are impacted by immune deficiency. The World Health Organization estimates about 7 million children a year die from immune deficiency related issues. Okay, so I'm frustrated with the fact that I can't raise that much money. I can get to 80, 90,000 kids a day, and then it goes down to 40, and then I get back up to. And so I had distribution partners for Manna Relief around the world that would help me in regions of the world redistribute. In Mexico, it just happened to be the former president of Mexico, Vicente Fox, and his wife, Marta. They have a wonderful charity down there called Vamos. And so I was having to call him and say, we're going to have to cut our donation this time because the fundraising dropped again. And I'm so frustrated with that, and I'm looking for a solution. And he said, have you ever heard of social business? And I said, no, I don't think so. And he said, it's entrepreneurs that are starting businesses to leverage the economic power of the marketplace to create sustainable funding to take on the world's biggest problems. That sounds like you.
Right, what you need.
And I said, it is. And he said, I'm hosting the first international symposium on social business this summer. You need to come. So I did. It was just life-changing. You know, it was, how do you run a social business? What are the mechanics of it? How do you facilitate the funding from the business to the not-for-profit? All those things. And one of the exercises that we looked at that conference is, what are the biggest issues in the world today that governments are too ineffective to deal with, that charities don't have the money or the capacity to deal with? And at the very top of the list was poor health.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the biggest economic threat, you know, to the world.
Yep.
You know, the cost of healthcare and where it's going.
Yep.
And the increase of poor health in the world and all these things. And so what does social business look like? Best practice in social business, in other words, how do you connect your consumer with your cause, is called buy one, give one. You know, Tom's Shoes was great at it. Every time they sold a pair of shoes, they donated a pair of shoes.
Yep.
So now the consumer doesn't have to wonder, I wonder how much of my purchase is being used for this or that. It has nothing to do with that. You get a pair of shoes, they get a pair of shoes. And so they said, if you will find the world's best technologies that can improve the human condition, if you can get the exclusive rights to those, if you will leverage that through a buy one, give one model so that every time someone consumes for themselves to improve their own quality of life, they'll make a difference in another child's life. You could have a social business that could literally change the world.
Yeah.
And I came home from that and I went, yes,
Yeah.
I am a social entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what to call myself.
Right.
So I went to the company that I had founded that was distributing Acemannan. And the biggest challenge is I had taken that company public. And so once you take a company public, your board of directors is obligated to only one thing, and it's not feeding children.
Right.
It's called shareholder equity.
Right.
But I proposed it to my company. I said, I want to convert us into a social business. Well, what does that mean? It means every time we sell a product, we're going to donate a month's supply of Acemannan to a child in need. Well, what's that going to cost? And when I shared how much it cost, they said, well, let's get some advice from outside counsel because, you know, litigation is not, we don't have any appetite for that. And outside counsel came in and said, really, it's too big of a risk to spend that much of your profit, you know, on feeding kids. Maybe you can do it some other way. And I said, it's best practice. Buy one, feed one. Anything less than that. And they just felt like they couldn't do it. And so, you know, I went home, talked to my wife, talked to my kids and said, here's where we're at. We can live happily ever after. We've built a business that is global. I mean, we'll never want for anything. Or we can discard it all and start all over again. Only this time we do it as a social business. And, my kids came from these environments. They're like, Dad, let's go take the world,
Oh, I love it.
So we did. I resigned from the company that I founded and built for 20 years and started all over again. Wow. And that is the company, Alovea.
Wow.
Now what we needed is the best technologies. And so I needed Acemannan.
Yep.
And my former company, I had the exclusive rights to it because I had secured that,
Right.
And I went to the company and I said, I'm going to resign. I'm going to start a social business. I will not compete with you. I just need the Acemannan for the kids. Can I still buy the Acemannan at cost and distribute it? And they said, well, as long as you're not competing, you can have it forever.
Yep.
About 90 days later, I found out how long forever was. I got a letter from outside counsel that said, we think it's a conflict with our exclusive arrangement to allow anybody outside of our company to have access to the product. And I was shook. I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? I've got out of the business. Now my charity can't even get access to it. And so I linked back up with one of the patent filers, organic chemist by the name of Dr. Santiago Rodriguez. He had developed the commercial equipment that it took to stabilize Acemannan. Mm-hmm. And he was doing something on his own. I didn't know what he was doing. And so we reconnected with him, and he said, well, actually, I've taken Acemannan to the next level. I said, well, how do you do that? He said, we found out that Acemannan, of course, exists in a wide variety of molecular weights, so small chain, medium chain, long chain polysaccharides. We knew they didn't all activate the immune system. The body uses what it can't use for the immune function just to nourish the body with mannose. But its efficacy depends on how many of the molecules that do activate the immune system actually get into the body. Mm-hmm. And he said, we didn't know what that sweet spot was. But about 6 or 7 years ago, a group of scientists from South Korea actually did the work. They broke it down into smaller increments, all the way from 5,000 to 5 million Daltons, and they found the sweet spot. And once they did that, I went back into the lab and redesigned a way of processing to increase the number of immune activating molecules of Acemannan about 4 to 5 times higher per gram than what you've been selling for 20 years.
Wow.
And
so you're back on.
I said, wait a minute, say that again, So I said, okay, I would like to license that from you.
Yeah.
And I'd like to have it exclusively. And of course, he was with the first company that I'd licensed and saw the success. So it wasn't like
the relationship
relationship was there. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we did. And so now all of a sudden we had the new improved version of Acemannan. The first thing I did is I put it back out into the field through Manna Relief.
Yeah.
And as we suspected, things happened faster and more effectively than anything we'd ever seen before. Yep. So now we had the base ingredient to start with. I found another molecule. We know that inflammation is a major issue in people's health. I think Time magazine called it the secret killer. Yeah. It's not a matter of how much do you have inflammation,
Everyone
it's how much.
Has it. Yep.
And so what in nature has the capacity to manage, inflammation? And I found it was a molecule in a beet root called a betalain. And a company had filed a patent on extracting betalains from beets, separating it from sugar, which is pro-inflammatory. They'd done the research and showed that it was by far the most efficacious way of managing inflammation. So I went to them with my story. I actually knew them from my previous company, and I said, but I'm starting all over. This is what I'm doing. I'm looking for the world's best technologies. Yeah. And I'd like to license yours exclusively. Mm-hmm. And they went, well, we put a lot of effort into this. And I said, and for every time I sell it, a child is going to get nourished and save their life. And they went, okay.
Oh, yeah. Who can say no to that?
Exactly. So that's how we built the proprietary line of the most efficacious technologies I think this industry has ever seen, and how we have them exclusively. But we knew that there was still something out there. And my wife said, you know, you don't have it all yet. Mm-hmm. There's something big, and it's coming. Just be on the lookout for it. And one day I get a call from a guy in New Zealand who's linking me up with Dr. Wilson, who you just interviewed. Yeah. And he tells me this incredible story about how they're capturing energy from plants and transferring that into water and making it available at levels that are efficacious to humans. And it just opened up a window of opportunity for health that I'd never even seen before. So I went to Oklahoma and sat down with he and his wife, Pamela. Just an incredible conversation that day. And the only question I had at the end of the conversation is, can you license this to me exclusively so that I don't have to worry about competing with anybody as I take it to the world? And of course, as you heard from him, that matched the culture that they wanted to be a part of. Yeah. An organization that could not only be successful in taking their technology to the market, but could do something of significance with it. You know, like meeting the needs of the world's most vulnerable children. Yes. How does it get any better than that?
No, it doesn't.
So that's the transformation of how I got into social business.
Oh, I love it. And how you attracted me into it and other wonderful natural health practitioners. I know Ann Smith, DC, Doctor of Chiropractic, is very involved. Yeah. And Daniel Morgan, who's a nutritionist herself. And hopefully a huge group of these natural health practitioners that can just go on and expand their practice. What do you think is the biggest obstacle right now from getting it to the masses? Because in my opinion, everybody should be on Acemannan and Limitless.
Yeah. Well, it's like when we first started with Acemannan, you know, an immune activating sugar. Yeah. I mean, even in biochemistry, nobody suspected that was capable of happening. And so you're bringing new technologies into the marketplace, and that's the biggest obstacle is ignorance. People just don't know. Right. Healthcare professionals don't know. Yep. You know, they've never been trained. They don't understand. Mm-hmm. And if they do understand, they don't know enough about this. You know, experience is the number one driver, though, of our product. Yes. People don't need to understand the science as much as they want to feel the response. Yes. You know, people are living desperate lives. They're looking for solutions. And there's not many out there that have any kind of sustainability. I mean, you know, we know that we can deal with the symptom of some chronic condition just by altering physiology with the drug. But that doesn't give a sustainable, you know, response to the root cause of why that's happening in the first place. And so for the healthcare community, what they want is the science. What they want to know is that we pay attention to what they pay attention to. Mm-hmm. And so I think we have the best science that the industry has ever seen. To the consumer, they want to know that the experience is going to be there. And so how do you combine those two together to bring a legitimate story into the marketplace? That people go, I don't understand what they're saying, but they got the solution. Yes. And they're willing to try it. And then, of course, the experience takes over from there. And the marketing effort that we use is we try to address the needs of both communities, both the healthcare, who are used to point of sale. We have a product. My consumer needs to have access to it. So in our company, we have what's called an affiliate program for them. But the biggest driver of this technology in the world today will be people telling people. Yep. You know, word of mouth. Word of mouth. It's the best way. That is it. And it works. And jury is not out on that. It's in. Yeah. You know, I mean, I built a $500 million a year company on word of mouth, just talking about the experience of Acemannan. The stories. That's right. Your story, you share it with someone else, and you don't know who you're going to impact. Right. Yeah. When I was looking at social business the first time, and I started reading books about it, they talked about if you can engage consumers and reward them for sharing their experience with others, it could be the most compelling form of social business the world has ever seen. Because change on a global basis is never facilitated by organizations or government. It's by people movements. And you arm people with something that can change their lives, and you'll compensate them for sharing that with others. They said that's what will drive the business on a global basis.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Sam. You are God's plan. I really feel that way. What your technology or supplements, what you're going to do to the healthcare movement that needs so much help and support right now is beyond words. So I feel honored and blessed to have you in my life and your supplements.
Thank you.